When the betrayal happens during a time of vulnerability, it cuts deeper than ordinary infidelity. Deployment is not just physical distance. It is emotional isolation, constant fear, and daily sacrifice wrapped into one. The husband leaves his home knowing that every day carries risk, trusting that the person he loves will guard the life they built together. That trust becomes sacred because it is forged in sacrifice. While he endures sleepless nights, hostile environments, and the mental weight of survival, he believes his wife is waiting, loyal, and strong in his absence. That belief is what keeps him grounded. The cheating does not occur in a moment of neglect or misunderstanding. It happens during the very period when loyalty matters most. While he is serving, missing birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries, she is making choices that permanently shatter the foundation of their marriage. The audience immediately understands the imbalance. One partner gives everything, even risking his life, while the other pursues selfish desire without considering the consequences. This contrast creates instant emotional alignment with the husband and frames the betrayal as unforgivable. Pregnancy amplifies this betrayal into something irreversible. Cheating can sometimes be hidden, denied, or rationalized, but pregnancy is physical proof that cannot be erased. It represents time, repetition, and commitment to deception. This was not a single mistake. It was a series of choices made over weeks and months while her husband was away. Every doctor visit, every lie on the phone, every message pretending everything was fine adds another layer to the betrayal. The audience feels the slow burn of deceit rather than a sudden accident. There is also a psychological cruelty in cheating during deployment. The wife knows her husband cannot come home to confront the situation. He is trapped by duty, distance, and obligation. She controls the narrative, deciding what he hears and when. This imbalance of power makes the betrayal feel calculated rather than impulsive. It suggests a lack of empathy so deep that the audience instinctively withdraws sympathy from her character. From a storytelling perspective, this type of betrayal triggers primal emotions: anger, injustice, and protectiveness. Viewers imagine themselves in the same position and feel the humiliation, rage, and disbelief on the husband's behalf. The deployment setting elevates the stakes because it ties personal betrayal to national or moral duty. The husband did not simply leave for work. He left to serve, to protect, to sacrifice. That context transforms the story from a private marital failure into a moral violation. This is why the first key point is so powerful. It sets the emotional tone for everything that follows. Once the audience accepts the depth of the betrayal, they are prepared to accept extreme consequences. Revenge no longer feels cruel. It feels justified. The story ensures that when the husband eventually takes control and dismantles the life his wife took for granted, the audience sees it not as destruction, but as the inevitable result of betrayal. During the most vulnerable moment of trust, what transforms suspicion into devastation is the moment when doubt is replaced by undeniable truth. In many infidelity stories, betrayal lives in shadows messages that could be misinterpreted, behavior that might be explained away, rumors that leave room for denial. This story removes that uncertainty completely. Pregnancy is not a rumor or a misunderstanding. It is biological fact. It becomes the one piece of evidence that cannot be argued, deleted, or spun into a half-truth. The moment the husband learns his wife is pregnant, the final illusion of loyalty collapses. For a deployed husband, this realization is especially brutal. He knows the dates, the distance, and the impossibility of the child being his. There is no confrontation needed, no investigation required. The math alone delivers the verdict. That certainty hits harder than any confession because it strips away even the false comfort of hope. He does not wonder if she cheated. He knows. The betrayal moves from emotional pain to absolute clarity, and clarity, while painful, also becomes power. The pregnancy also exposes the length and seriousness of the affair. This was not a fleeting lapse in judgment. It required time, secrecy, and repeated decisions to lie. Each month of pregnancy represents another month of deception, another lie during phone calls, another false reassurance during messages, another performance of normalcy while living a double life. The audience understands that this level of deceit requires intention. It was planned, sustained, and protected. There is a unique humiliation attached to this kind of proof. The husband is not only betrayed, he is replaced. Another man's child is growing in the space that once symbolized their shared future. That image is psychologically devastating because it attacks identity, masculinity, and legacy all at once. The betrayal is no longer abstract. It is visible, measurable, and permanent. This creates deep emotional resonance for the audience, who feel the weight of that realization alongside him. From a narrative standpoint, irrefutable proof removes moral ambiguity. The wife cannot convincingly play the victim, and the audience does not feel conflicted about her fate. Excuses like loneliness, stress, or emotional neglect lose their power when faced with physical evidence. The story shifts from what happened to what must be done. The focus moves away from investigation and toward consequence. This proof also triggers the protagonist's transformation. Before, he was a trusting husband defined by patience and sacrifice. After the truth is revealed, he becomes methodical, controlled, and emotionally detached. Certainty allows him to plan rather than react. He no longer seeks explanations or closure through conversation. The evidence gives him the confidence to act decisively, knowing he is morally justified in every step he takes. The audience finds satisfaction in this shift. Viewers often grow frustrated with stories where betrayal is prolonged by denial or indecision. Here, the pregnancy acts as a narrative accelerant. It forces the truth into the open and pushes the story forward with momentum. Once the proof exists, the emotional contract with the audience is sealed. They expect accountability, fallout, and justice. In this way, the pregnancy is more than a plot device. It is the emotional and moral anchor of the story. It validates the husband's pain, eliminates doubt, and sets the stage for the irreversible consequences that follow. What makes the husband's response so compelling is not explosive anger, but restraint. Instead of reacting with shouting, violence, or desperate pleading, he goes silent and starts thinking. The betrayal has already stripped him of trust, so emotion no longer guides his decisions. What replaces it is calculation. This shift from wounded husband to strategic actor is what elevates the story from simple heartbreak to a powerful revenge narrative. His first realization is that emotional reactions would only weaken his position. Rage might feel satisfying in the moment, but it would hand control back to the person who betrayed him. By staying calm, he keeps the upper hand. Every conversation becomes measured. Every word is chosen carefully. The wife, expecting confrontation or forgiveness, misreads his silence as confusion or denial, unaware that he is quietly restructuring his future without her in it. The revenge unfolds through systems, not scenes. Legal frameworks, finances, documentation, and timing become his tools. He gathers evidence, secures accounts, consults attorneys, and ensures that when he moves, the outcome is irreversible. There is something chilling but deeply satisfying to the audience in this approach. It mirrors the fantasy of doing everything right. After betrayal, rather than acting in ways that later bring regret, what makes this revenge feel justified rather than cruel is its proportionality. He does not destroy out of spite. He removes what she no longer deserves access to. Financial support, shared assets, and social protection were privileges of marriage, and she forfeited them through her actions. The story frames his decisions as consequences, not punishment. This distinction is crucial for audience alignment. They do not see him as vindictive. They see him as fair. There is also a psychological layer to this calculated revenge. By refusing to engage emotionally, he denies her the reaction she expects. No dramatic breakdown, no begging, no negotiation. This emotional withdrawal becomes a form of power. She is left to face the consequences alone, without the comfort of his attention or empathy. For someone who relied on deception and manipulation, this silence is more destabilizing than anger. The audience finds satisfaction in the intelligence of his approach. Many revenge stories rely on dramatic confrontations, but this one leans into realism. Paperwork, court filings, financial freezes, and exposure to truth often cause far more damage than shouting ever could. Viewers recognize this as the kind of revenge that lasts quiet, clean, and legally unassailable. His actions also reflect a reclaiming of identity. During deployment, his life was defined by duty and restraint. After the betrayal, those same traits become weapons. Discipline becomes strategy, patience becomes timing, control becomes freedom. The audience watches him transform pain into precision, which resonates deeply with viewers who value self, mastery over chaos. This key point reinforces a central theme. True power after betrayal comes from clarity and control, not emotion. By choosing calculated revenge, the husband does not just retaliate, he reasserts agency over his life. The story teaches that the most devastating response to betrayal is not fury, but the calm execution of consequences. The true turning point of the story arrives when the balance of power shifts completely. At the beginning, the husband is defined by absence physically away, emotionally unaware, bound by duty and distance. His wife controls the home, the narrative, and the secrets. He is the one sacrificing while she lives freely, making choices without immediate consequence. This imbalance is what makes the betrayal feel so suffocating. He has no control, no voice, and no visibility into what is happening behind his back. Once the truth is undeniable and his strategy is set, that dynamic reverses. Control begins to move quietly but decisively into his hands. He is no longer reacting to events, he is shaping them. Financial authority, legal positioning, and emotional detachment become the tools through which he regains dominance. The wife, who once believed she held all the leverage, suddenly finds herself uncertain, dependent, and exposed. This power shift is not just practical, it is deeply psychological. For the husband, reclaiming control restores a sense of self that betrayal tried to destroy. Infidelity often attacks identity, especially masculinity, by making the victim feel replaceable or weak. Through decisive action, he redefines himself not as a man who was fooled, but as a man who responded with strength and clarity. The audience experiences this transformation as redemption rather than revenge. The wife's perspective changes just as dramatically. The safety she assumed would always exist disappears. Financial stability, social image, and emotional security begin to crumble. The man she underestimated is no longer accessible or forgiving. Every attempt to explain, justify, or manipulate fails because he is no longer emotionally invested. This reversal is critical to the narrative's emotional payoff. The audience watches consequences unfold in real time, not through humiliation, but through loss of control. This shift also aligns with a broader theme of masculine redemption that resonates strongly with viewers. The husband does not prove his strength through violence or domination, but through self-command. He sets boundaries, enforces consequences, and refuses to be pulled back into chaos. In doing so, he becomes a symbol of disciplined power, someone who chooses dignity over desperation. This is particularly impactful given his background of service, where restraint and control are core values. From a storytelling standpoint, the power shift gives the narrative momentum. Once dominance changes hands, the story no longer revolves around betrayal, but outcome. The audience is invested not in what happened, but in how far the consequences will go. Every step the husband takes reinforces the inevitability of the wife's downfall. There is no dramatic showdown because the war has already been won through preparation. Importantly, this redemption does not require the husband to become cruel or heartless. He does not celebrate her suffering or seek public humiliation for pleasure. His strength lies in indifference. That indifference is what truly marks the shift in power. When someone who once cared deeply no longer reacts, the imbalance becomes irreversible. By the end of this key point, the audience understands that the story is no longer about a man who was betrayed. It is about a man who reclaimed authority over his life. The power shift completes his transformation from victim to architect of his own future, delivering a deeply satisfying sense of justice and emotional resolution. The final stage of the story is not driven by anger or spectacle, but by consequence. Everything that follows feels inevitable rather than explosive. Once the husband has reclaimed control and removed himself emotionally, the remaining pieces fall into place on their own. The life the wife once relied on financial security, social respect, and emotional safety begins to unravel, not because he seeks to destroy her, but because it was built on a lie that can no longer stand. What gives this ending its power is moral closure. The audience does not feel left hanging, wondering if justice was served. Each loss the wife experiences is directly tied to a choice she made. The comfort she enjoyed during his deployment was funded by his sacrifice. The stability she assumed would protect her was sustained by his trust. Once both are withdrawn, the collapse feels earned. This reinforces the central message that betrayal carries consequences beyond the moment of pleasure. Social consequences play a significant role here. Lies thrive in isolation, but truth reshapes perception. Friends, family, and even those who once defended her begin to distance themselves as the reality becomes clear. The image she curated no longer matches the facts. This shift isolates her emotionally, not through public shaming, but through the natural withdrawal of trust. The audience sees this as fair rather than cruel, because reputation is shown as something maintained by integrity, not entitlement. Financial fallout adds another layer of realism. The husband does not ruin her through illegal or immoral acts. He simply stops providing the life she assumed was guaranteed. Legal settlements, asset division, and loss of support reshape her future. Viewers understand that this is not vengeance, but accountability. Marriage is a partnership, and she violated the terms. The consequences mirror the breach. Emotionally, the most devastating outcome is the absence of rescue. The husband does not return to argue, comfort, or explain. There is no dramatic final conversation where forgiveness is begged for or denied. His silence becomes the final boundary. This lack of emotional access forces her to confront the results of her actions alone. For the audience, this is the ultimate form of justice, calm, final, and irreversible. The story closes with a sense of balance restored. The husband moves forward with clarity, dignity, and freedom, no longer defined by betrayal. He regains peace not through dominance, but through detachment. This resolution appeals strongly to viewers who value self-respect and long-term healing over short-term satisfaction. It suggests that true victory is not watching someone suffer, but reclaiming one's own life. For the audience, this ending delivers emotional satisfaction without glorifying cruelty. The wife's downfall is not celebrated, it is acknowledged. The lesson is clear and resonant. Trust is foundational, and once broken, the structure built upon it cannot survive. The story ends not with chaos, but with order restored, leaving viewers with a strong sense of justice, closure, and emotional completeness.